Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Freestyle Talkz. My name is Carlos Osvaldo from Maputo in Mozambique. Uh, Today is August 6th. It's a Friday. It's now 5 p.m. In Mozambique. We are here for one more special edition of our talks in this platform. If you are new, please sign in, subscribe to be updated and be informed on our newest conversations and discussions and guests who we always bring you to entertain you and also to inform you. Uh, because entertainment and information can be together. So, our topic of this Friday, of this week, from us in Mozambique, South Africa is one of our neighbors, is one of our closest and most important neighbor countries, and we have been watching with some a concern in the previous weeks about social unrest, about news about those social unrest in South Africa, about information on social media as well, and you never know exactly what's happening. You see a lot of confusion, a lot of agitation, protests, and we hear different opinions and we hear different explanations on what's really happening. But especially in today's world where everybody is a form of media, sometimes it's not easy to really get to the bottom of what's really happening. And so we decided that it was important for us as Freestyle Talkz to talk about this situation with South Africans who are active, who are aware, who are responsible and have a role in their society also to inspire others and to bring information and knowledge and spread and share knowledge. So uh, through our good friend Stephen Reed, who was also a previous guest of Freestyle Talkz last year, and we thank Stephen for this connection. We were able to combine a very interesting panel to have a must-see discussion. So I'm gonna bring and invite my guests to join me. So they are two gentlemen that I'm really happy to have them with us this afternoon. So I'm gonna start with Coach Cello. Let me see if I'm saying it in the right way. Hello, my friend. Thank you. Welcome. I cannot hear you now, so you don't have sound from that side. I think it's on mute.
Ah, yes, it's the small matter of unmuting. Thank you for having me, Brother Carlos. How are you, my brother?
I'm very good, and I'm honored to have you here with us. So welcome to Freestyle Talkz. Let me also call Mr. Welcome to join us. Hello, brother. Welcome.
Hi, good day, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Carlos. Coach, it's nice to see you.
My pleasure having you both. So maybe the best way to start this, I would like to ask you both to give us a round of introduction so that people know who you are. And maybe I'll put myself in the middle of this screen just to have my guests on my sides. And I will maybe start with Coach. Tell us a little bit more about you, about your work, about your journey, and then Welcome the same thing, please. So, Coach, please.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Brother Carlos, for inviting me to the platform. I really appreciate it. Any moment that we get to share ideas, to sit around a table and talk as men, as women, as children, is always valuable. Coach Scelo, I know that name Scelo is a bit difficult to pronounce, so most people just call me Coach. I'm actually popularly known in some circles for just business coaching. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. I work as a business coach in marginalized communities. So I go to the communities where I grew up and I try to assist people in developing their companies. Naturally, if you're working with an environment like that, I do draw from a background that is very strong in spirituality as well. And a background that is very strong in understanding the practicals of just how to manage a business and the financial side of a business as well through the different types of businesses that I've ran through the years. So yeah, I mean, the first business that I ever ran was in 1998. So I do feel that there's a lot that I can share, especially with young people who want to enter into that space of entrepreneurship. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis.
So thank you very much for this. Let me also invite Welcome to give us his story and his journey. So go ahead, Welcome, please.
Okay, so I'm Welcome. As you spell Welcome with the E at the end, and I'm the one of the founding members of Bright Spark Foundation, as well as Bright Spark Innovations and Training Solutions. But we predominantly, so what we do, or what I basically do, or what I work on, is we work with boys and girls that are caught in gangs, and also work with boys and girls that are vulnerable. Looking at our programs that are currently running, which is the Boys to Men, creating circles for fathers and sons to meet in the middle. We have circles for daughters and moms to meet in the middle, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons. We work with the dynamic of bringing families together. That's our main objective, as well as creating opportunities for young people to look beyond the the narrative, going beyond that of saying, in order for me to be accepted in the world, I need to be a gangster. In order for me to be accepted in the world, I need to drive a fancy car, steal, take, and all of that. So we give them another option at saying, how can they be boys and girls of integrity? How can they be girls and boys that support and help each other? So that is what we drive mainly as a foundation at Bright Spark. So that's what we do in a nutshell. I mean, we have a lot of programs and projects within Bright Spark Foundation, but our main aim, our biggest aim, is to facilitate that kind of parent and child relationship, father and son relationship, mother and daughter relationship, and that's what we basically do. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Thank you for that. I would like also to ask you if you two know each other before.
No.
Okay, so the gentleman who recommended you, so Stephen Reed, is the one who knows us all. So
Wow.
Thank you, Stephen, for this connection.
Thank you.
And I think it's also very interesting to use these opportunities also to expand our networks and to know the work of each other. So that's why I felt that the introduction was much needed, just to give us a perspective on who's talking with us, right? So from my side, just also to introduce myself to you both, gentlemen. So we are in Mozambique, in Maputo. So I'm the founder of this platform, Freestyle Talkz. So we've been doing this for 15 months or so. And our mission is really to bring inspiration and to connect Africa through the world through inspiration, to act as a bridge of inspiration. And we've been having more than 80 guests during these 15 months from more than a dozen countries. So we've been giving a tour in the world, a tour around the world, digitally and virtually. And it's always very special to come back to Africa and to talk about important issues to our continent. And for us in Mozambique, South Africa has always been our big brother, our richest neighbor, our biggest influence in the region. So whatever happens in South Africa has a huge impact in in us in Mozambique. And this situation we saw recently really created a lot of attention and a lot of fear and concern from on our side of the border in Maputo, in Mozambique as a whole. But I found it more and more difficult these days to have access to the real information and the truth. So much information going on, so much gossip in a way, and counter information and fake news. So I always like to talk to real people, people like me, people who I can relate and my audience can relate to understand how people like us are living and understanding these social issues. And that's why I really asked Stephen Reed to give me support in finding uh, good people to talk to and to help us in understanding what's happening in South Africa, because it does affect all of us in Africa in a way. So maybe I would like to start by asking Coach first. How are things now? Because we have an impression that the most of the news are calm now, are gone. It's not that peak of the agitation. So how are things now? Uh, and how are you and your family, and how you are going through this situation? And also uh, about COVID, is everything okay from your side? How are things now evolving? And then same question to Welcome before we even dig deeper into this issue of social unrest. So please, Coach.
All right. No, thank you for that question, Carlos. I think just to put maybe a direct answer to some of those main questions as to how are we doing, the family and I are fine. By the grace of God, we feel we are in a safer time now. It seems like things are subsiding. But I say it seems like because true to the core of your questions, true to the core of why you even called this panel together, to hear from us, even as South Africans. I commend you for doing that, but I also think we also don't really know what's going on. The reality of what you are talking about with social media as well, and mob psychology and misinformation is real for us even here on the ground, if I'm being totally honest with you. I'm speaking to you currently. I'm in Johannesburg, servicing a contract in Johannesburg as a business advisor for TechnoServe. But I very much have ties in Durban as well. And both the places where I call my home were looted, and there was a lot of drama around it. I think you are right to ask, how are we really actually doing? Let alone the immediate, the physical danger, which is always the primary concern. But how are we really doing? Because we can't even say we know exactly what happened or why it happened, or who exactly. The only thing that I think I can truthfully say from the bottom of my heart, as someone who has worked as a business coach for a very long time, is that probably the people who are looting are not entrepreneurs. I don't think a man walks into another man's house and violates his children like that. I don't think you walk into someone else's business because our businesses are like our children and you violate it like that. So I actually have compassion. I actually have a lot of sympathy, a lot of empathy, a lot of. I don't think someone who was doing that would have been doing that in the right state of mind. I think it's a temporal madness of some sort. I know I'm going deeper into things that we can discuss later, but for me, they are right at the core of why I would then say, no, I am feeling well, I'm feeling safe, and it's only by the grace. It's understanding that something like this cannot be sustained. It cannot survive because it has no substance. But for that brief period of trauma, of weirdness, yes, it's daunting. It seems everything becomes dark. You don't know if you have to step outside. What if you need some food? You start hearing about food shortages. It becomes a madness thing, and you go on social media. And I genuinely believe social media only helps to also put fuel to fire, because then you start to panic. But we are fine, Put Carlos, and thank you for asking. The dust seems to be circling, and people are starting to realize the damage that we have caused and that we'll have to own up to, and the cleanup that we'll have to own up to ultimately.
Thank you. Welcome. From your side, how are things? How are you? How is your family with COVID and everything else? So tell me a little bit more about you and your family's well-being first. And how are things socially now after the peak of the confusion?
Okay, so thank you, Carlos, for asking that question again. I think for us as family, yeah, we are doing as well as expected. Taking every single day as it comes, realizing that we need to, as a family, really rely on each other, and just really not piggyback on each other's backs in relation to this, but rather checking in with each other to see how we are doing every single day when we wake up, because there's a lot happening out there that can sometimes influence the family. So what we've done is that we've decided not to really watch the news, but rather just engage with each other more often, because there's such a lot of stuff coming in and so mixed. So we rather just spend a lot of quality time with each other, because anything can happen. Yeah, we've lost a lot of close family, friends, due to COVID-19. So it has been a bit of a schlep emotionally. And each of us within the family have taken it in a different way. So that is why this constant checking in with each other is so important. So thank you for that. Personally, for me, with regards to what's happening in South Africa, I've never really thought or saw myself as a political person. I don't want to be too much into the politics of our country, but because of the kind of business and foundation I run, I have no other choice but to sometimes tap in to the political landscape just to see where we are as a country economically. And where it hurts me most is the parts where through all of this that has happened, and because we work with kids, is that no one in South Africa has been understanding the impact this has been having on our children. We've been so adults about this. We've just been focusing on, are adults okay? Is government okay? Is businesses okay? Is this okay? But not 1 minute did we sit and say, wow, how are our kids doing? Where are our kids finding themselves? And as adults, we focus so much on leadership that we step into positions of leadership thinking that we're going to survive forever. But we fail to realize that actually the kids are the leaders of this country. And if we don't check in with them, when's this entire thing, as my brother, the coach has said, is that once this entire thing, as the dust has settled, where are our kids? They have ultimately emotionally created spaces in their heads where they could survive this on their own. And it's going to be much difficult for us to reach them, because they're going to say, but guys, you were all busy running around trying to fix the country. You haven't really been paying attention to us. So that's my biggest concern in South Africa at the specific moment, as we're going to talk about it, as you've said, like talk about the social unrest and the impact that has had on the country. I mean, 750,000 South African kids dropping out of school is not a joke. That's an impact, not just on us, but on families, on businesses, on South Africa as a whole. And that, for me, is where what I'm currently battling with at this specific moment.
No, and especially also an impact on the future. And that's a significant impact on a country's future and the whole generation. So that number is really scary. I would also like to welcome once again our viewers. So if you are tuned in, welcome, and we thank you for being with us. Feel free to interact, so you can engage with us. Use the chat on YouTube. Send us your questions, your comments, anything you'd like to see addressed in this discussion. Feel free to interact and engage with us. Okay, so thank you and welcome. So my first question about this topic of social unrest.
Coach, are you still there?
I'm still here, Putwami. Carlos?
I think we've lost Carlos. Okay, we'll just give him a minute. Maybe he'll be back now. But which side of Joburg are you now, Coach?
I'm right in town, yes, Butwami, right in town, by the towards the end side, towards the Bree side, in Marshalltown.
Oh, okay. And how are things down
Yes,
there
around
right now?
Marshalltown.
And how are things down there?
Yeah, it's okay because there's a bit of a community this side. You kind of always see the same familiar faces. Unfortunately, there's no more neighbors as it used to be in the past, but you still see community. You still see a sense of, I know that person. I may not know their name, but so we kind of look out for each other. We greet each other a little bit more. So you sense in the energy that there is that roughening of, take a second look and just check, are you what's happening in your environment, are you safe,
Yeah.
and yourself, Putwami, whereabouts are you?
We basically based in Highlands North, which is on Norwood, and then just
Yeah,
down the road
yeah.
we've got Alex. Yeah, and so it has been quite a very especially due to the unrest. There's been a lot of, I saw a very different face of South Africa, where people just withdrew, into their homes and into their own spaces. There wasn't
Yeah.
really that kind of Ubuntu concept that we've all grown up with, because everybody didn't know who to trust, or what to think or what to feel, and I think that fear can do that to people. It just draws them into a space of saying that I need to protect my family, and it's just about them and their family. And that wasn't that real kind of like, let's check in with how are the neighbors doing, let's check in with what's Umelwani across the street doing. So that was my kind of fear, especially in the setup that we are in. It's just like every man for himself, and that was the sadness.
It's sad, but it's sad. But yeah, you are right. This is what we are faced with now,
And the thing for me is, like, as a businessman, I'm studying at the Henley Business School, and so what I've come to learn is that business is a very big part of the South African economy. It builds, it also helps to build. And with the kids coming to me, kids are in the space right now where they're talking about what they want to do. Many of the kids coming and saying they want to leave school, they want to start their own businesses. It's like
I hear you.
scary. It's like really, really scary.
Hi guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm back. My internet had a problem, a
Welcome
connection
back,
problem.
Carlos.
It went down. I had to now turn into my phone's internet. So yeah, but I'm really sorry, and thank you for carrying on. I'm back now, and I'm sorry also to interrupt your conversation. I think it was going well,
Okay.
but but yes, I wanted to really start digging into this topic, and I really wanted to, my way of thinking about these issues is first trying to understand what really happened. So we saw different news, we saw images, videos, etc. So what was going on? All of this madness happening. How did it started? Where? Who were there? Were there young people involved? Were there more older people? Coach was saying he doesn't believe our entrepreneurs involved in this or behind this. So who was really doing this, and what was really happening? So maybe Coach first, and then welcome. Thank you.
Because I've tried to think about this thing for myself as well, to try and look at the sequences and look at the timeline, as it were. And I think one of the things that I'm greatly challenged with when it comes to this whole situation is really the poor timing of the whole thing. And it's such an unfortunate circumstance that the role that time has played in all of it, that I don't even think it was really any man-made kind of directed output of what happened with the time then and how it was invested. And what I mean by that is, you must remember, yes, now we could be talking just about the unrest, the looting. It happens at the time when we are right at the height of COVID-19. And with the restrictions also, coming back and that pressure, people having had to pull back inward, and yet, when we are at home and we are not at our offices, we are not in our usual routines. So the food, the way that we spend when we are at home is different, and everything is new, and it's new for everyone. I'm just trying to give that context before we even talk about what really actually happened on which date and who was it exactly. There's just a bigger context here of a group of people that are largely frustrated, heavily frustrated for years, even for years, way before COVID-19. You find that these are frustrations that have always been bubbling under. These are complaints that have always been bubbling under. You can't deny them. And I refuse to fall into a space where it's now about, no, it's his fault, or it's my fault, or it's that skin color, or it's that skin color. I don't even want to go there. I want to say, at the height of us facing something that is not man-made necessarily, that is very difficult to face, that needs all of us to pull together, that reminds us how connected we are, how much things that I touch out there, other people are also touching. That's how connected we are. At the height of all of that, then there is this huge explosion of anger, as it were, because I describe it as anger when it explodes. It's almost like someone in a relationship that did not voice out their frustrations and kept that energy of anger in for a long time, and a long time compromising to the stage where it just explodes. That is how I saw things as happening, because earlier when it really was starting, it seemed to be about Jacob Zuma and being arrested. But when you really looked at it, you realize there's something deeper happening here. There's something way beyond a protest because of a genuine following for some people, for someone. There is something else that is either criminal or looting, or we don't know what it is, but there's this mob thing that took over. And I believe they were temporarily insane, the people that then got caught in that moment. I genuinely believe they were not being themselves. I think they had forgotten their divinity in that moment in time. So if you are asking me what really actually happened, Jacob Zuma got arrested. A few people seemed like they were protesting against that. Before I knew it, it was not about that. This was just some explosion. That's as much as I really actually know. Beyond that, there's then what we hear from the news. And I don't want to go into that because, like you said, there's also then that misinformation. I'm giving you the honest to God truth of how I visualized everything happening. I, one moment, was reading about people are protesting because Jacob Zuma is going to jail. The next moment, all hell broke loose. And I don't really have a real reason why. Why did it happen? What really happened to some of my brothers and my sisters?
Thank you, Coach. So, from your perspective, and one thing I think it's very important also to point out is that we are not here trying to get into the one universal truth. So what we are here trying to do is really understanding and sharing your experiences and your perspectives, just to give us a point of view on who's there and who's living this. And sometimes, especially in these social issues and difficult times, we don't get one truth. We get our opinion, our experience and perspective, and that's all we can share. So I'm really thankful for both of you to doing that, just sharing your vision, your experience, and your truth. And that's really what we are looking for, and we are thankful for having this opportunity. So, welcome from your side. How are things? What took place? What have you experienced during this period?
So for me, I would like to take a different approach towards what had happened in the unrest. So what I can perceive as such would be the fact that if I can speak open and frankly about it, I think that for me, despite the Jacob Zuma and everything else and the countries, whatever going on, there's only one thing, and I think for me, it stems from the fact that as South Africans, we have the tendency, and the ability to sometimes talk about forgiveness, and yet we do not want to pay attention to the forgetting. And what we do is that we just go on with our lives, and then once certain things come up, we don't want to go back to where it actually resonated from. And I mean, if I go back to we go back to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for instance, like it was let's just forgive and move on. That is why we are here. It's because we constantly go back to the basic of saying, we as South Africans need to come to a point of saying, if we work through something, we need to work through something completely, wholeheartedly, and really know that we've taken it from the root. For me, I feel like our government is not just partly to blame, but everyone in South Africa is to blame. Even myself. The fact that I could see this happening, the fact that I could see that this is going to happen, I should have known what to have done in that specific position. My father used to say that if you leave the pot on the stove for a very long time and you don't check up on it, what do you expect? So that's the kind of, people were angry, promises were made, things were said, a lot of things. And when you promise a child so many times that I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you, and every time you need to deliver, you have an excuse, the child eventually is not going to believe your promises anymore. And South Africa suffers under the parental process. They do not understand what it's like to step into a role of leadership, not just to be a hlalweni, to be in a position of authority, to be in a position of power. They forget that being in a position of power is that you take responsibility for what happens to people on the ground. If they suffer, you suffer. And for me, that's the kind of dynamic that we as South Africans are still learning. We want that Mercedes-Benz because we want people to see our position of power. But yet, umakhelwane, the neighbor is still hungry. If the neighbor next door is hungry and you're driving a Mercedes-Benz, then you're not a leader. And that is what our government and our people need to learn. If a person is hungry outside and you've got your flashy car, you're not a leader. You're just part of the problem. Until we can take that out of the equation completely, we will have an understanding of why this unrest really happened. Because as South Africans, we don't want to go deeper. We just want to hit it on the surface. No, let's rebuild businesses. Let's go back to normal. We're going to go back to normal today. 10 years down the line, we're going to be facing the same problem. We're going to deal with the situation again. Everybody's going to come together and people are going to say, let's rebuild. 20 years that we're going to have the same problem until we look at saying, is our government value-based? Are we value-based? Are we the inculcation of Ubuntu? Do we really look at ourselves and say, how can I have a business and be successful, and look at my brother on the other side of the road and see, but he's not, and how do I go over there and help him to get to where I'm at? So for me, I feel like that is the current situation that has led us to the position where we are in, is that we really need to look at the Africanized process of how do we as Africans, because as you said, my brother Carlos, the impact that South Africa has on your country as well. And we've seen what's happening in Mozambique at the same time. It's that kind of, as leaders, we're not going to listen. We're just going to do what we want to do. And the people must just eat cake, and that kind of philosophy brings us back to where we're at right now, is that we can't eat cake anymore. People are tired of being told to eat cake, but you never make the cake. The cake is never on the table, but you expect me to eat cake. And then you raise the petrol prices, expecting that you've been on lockdown, and now you're giving us something. So for me, it's like, where is the thought? Where's the heart? Where's the value of your people? There isn't. And that is what we need to look at, is that who holds who accountable? Because our governments are just going around doing what they want to do. There's nobody taking any accountability, and that's the problem. So yeah, anyway, that's just, I'm going to go into a state of frustration. Let me not do that. But that's just the point of impact at this specific moment.
Coach, from hearing Welcome's opinion and perspective, anything you also would like to add on that note?
Sorry, come again, Carlos?
No, I was asking you after hearing Welcome's introduction comments on this situation of the social unrest and his perspective. No, I was just asking if you'd like to add something on that note, also to follow up.
You know what? More than any other thing, I really appreciate how you are bringing our minds back to the value system of the family. The because for me, I know we haven't even started talking about the solutions. Sometimes the problem seems so big, so you think we need big solutions. I think the solution needs to come back locally. It needs to come back to the value of the family. I think you are very right. This has shaken our families, and we are all partaking in the thing. We are all a part of it. We can't point fingers. We can't say it was him and it was her. It's in my family. And if my younger brother was directly involved, I need to sit him down and help him understand that you are not building. So for me, I take from that more than any other thing that we can't keep just sugarcoating things like my brother is saying. We can't just keep neglecting. We need to sit down in the family household and start having some tough conversations. We know maybe some of those people in person. Talk to the person and have them realize that, yeah, but the solution that you are bringing about is not a complete solution. In fact, it causes more of a problem. Now we'll have to rebuild the schools. Now we'll have to rebuild the infrastructure because it didn't help what you were doing. You broke the infrastructure in frustration. I get the anger. I understand, because I think without that compassion of saying, I understand that you were angry, then we fall into a dangerous area of also just finger pointing and quick to rush into judgment. It's more of a question of, yes, you feel angry, but do not justify your anger by acting out. When you act out, you are breaking even some of the foundations that we have laid. Now we are building a foundation on top of a foundation. When do we get a chance to pick the house up and start to move forward and build other things that have also been lacking?
No problem. And coach, I know you have to change devices, so if you want to go ahead and do that, feel free. We'll carry on for a moment with
Thank you.
welcome, and okay, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Brother, welcome. The other thing I would like to also ask you is really now looking into we saw different perspectives about this. The economical one. So, were there entrepreneurs or not involved, business people, unemployed people? We see also age perspective, more younger people or 30s and 40s or older people who was involved. And there's also always in Africa and South Africa is not an exception, also a racial element to this. So more African people, black people were involved in these videos or not. So uh, and and South Africa is very complex in this puzzle, a social and demographical and economical puzzle. Everything is kind of mixed, and we also have, of course, a political approach. So who, how can we start really unpacking these different perspectives and different approaches and different levels and different layers to start making some sense on how to really get into the roots of this problem by understanding who was expressing this anger.
Yeah. So, like I said, in our country, my brother, we have the tendency of saying that, the looting is over. Everybody now in South Africa is coming together and rebuilding businesses, and everything is kumbaya, and we're sitting around the fire and we're singing. Because now the world needs to see, because I think if I look at Instagram, I don't know if you're aware of it, everybody just wants likes. Everybody's working towards 1,000 likes, 2,000 likes, 3,000 likes. Now the world is seeing that South Africa is getting back together, but like I said, in under the surface, there's much more brewing. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. My only advice that I could give to government and to people, even people on business, is to how do we address the emotion that was part of the looting? How do we address that? How do we go and say, let's sit down and say, okay, so my next door neighbor was arrested for looting. What was the emotion that led her to do that, that led him to do that? That is something that we as South Africans need to we need to make it a normal to talk about that emotion. Because if we just arrest the person, let the person go to prison, pay the fine, go home, and then it's you know what? It's part of a statistic. We as government, we've done something. We haven't done anything. That person is still gonna go home. There's still that emotion with that person about, you know what, I was doing that. I mean, if we look back and the coach can agree with me, back to the days when a very good friend of mine, Bongeni Ngema, did Sarafina, where you saw these young people approaching these old people in the Shabin and saying, you know what, stop drinking, we're going to go and we're going to do this. And they started burning down, they started breaking down this, they did a lot of things. And from that year until now, it's 2021 and we are still burning infrastructure. Doesn't make sense. Have we not advanced so much that we know that there's better ways of dealing with things? And the culture in South Africa is that we talk so much, we love talking. But when we come to the point of having to action it, we all say, oh, I've got a degree in this, I've got a degree in that. My job is to sit at the table and talk. The question is, when are you going to action your degree? When are you going to action that which you've learned at this so-called business school or this university? It's time that South Africans start waking up to the realities that if poor people get poorer and they get hungry, they're going to eat rich. They're going to eat the rich people, and that's how things are going to be. And until people realize the reality of that going to happen, like I said, I work with young people. And when I sit down with these young people from the ages of 14 until 18, the things that these young people are talking about, the things that these young people are wanting to do moving forward in their lives, it doesn't have parents involved, doesn't have teachers involved, doesn't have the president involved. You know, they're thinking of doing something in their own head that is going to bring this country to a different dynamic. So for me, it's like, if we don't wake up to the reality of what we need to do and how do we get back to the stage of being responsible parents, being responsible adults, and saying, you know what, looting has happened. Now let us sit down and talk about the emotions that have been involved. If you have followed the news, my brother, you also see that in Phoenix, for instance, the EFF marched to Phoenix. They were talking about the Indians that had killed black people and black people that. Oh, so for me, it's like, so what? So now we want to remove the dynamic of the looting and we want to bring something else into it. So now we want people to focus on that, and media is also helping. So now we're just creating another graveyard. So for me, it's like South Africa is a dramatic nation, and we need to step out of the drama. We just want every single time there must be drama. We don't want to build. We want to build for the surface, but we don't want to build underneath. And at the end of all of this, our young people are affected by this. And that is my message today, is that people need to realize that we are not doing this to ourselves. We are literally destroying the future of this country, because our young people are currently saying, people don't care about us. We're just going to do what we want to do because they're doing what they want to do. So that's the divide that we need to be worried about. And that's my part on that.
Mhm. No, I can totally relate to what you are saying. Let me also share that in Mozambique, we are going through a war in the northern region in Cabo Delgado. So there's a war happening in Mozambique. And once again, we talk about the political and the military implications and economical and independence, but who is really getting hurt and who is seeing their dreams and their future destroyed and compromised is the youth. Youth in Cabo Delgado, kids and children and teenagers who are watching the violence and destruction every day, and they are growing up watching that and living that experience. They will become damaged adults, of course. So once again, the looking after the next generation is absolutely a must do, and it's right now. We don't have time to do this and to delay this. So I totally understand your point in pointing that aspect of really focusing and worrying about youth and implications to the future. And coach, as someone who is also working on businesses with entrepreneurs or with small businesses, uh, because I was talking to Brother Welcome about the different layers where we can also approach this subject. We have a political side, we have an economical side, we have maybe a religious side, we have a racial side, we have a political one as well. So, COVID health implications or influence as well. So, there are lots of different layers to unpack this situation. Uh, what do you think about which one maybe has the most to be a cause of this? Uh, which of these layers, or two of them, are the real cause of not just the social unrest that we saw now? Because we understand it's not an isolated thing. I think it's a consequence of past mistakes. But how do we start healing? Where do we start fixing this?
So for me, Brother Carlos, and thank you for that question. I hope I'm also audible enough. I was trying not to use this device. The web camera on it is not as good as my mobile. But I'm really interested in our conversation and I'm enjoying its flow. For me, Brother Carlos, you are right to start to ask your question by pointing to the work with the entrepreneur on the ground. And for me, business is such an important tool to fight poverty, such an important tool to give one that self confidence to even be themselves. Business gives you something else, not just making money, not just money in the bank, but the confidence to be yourself, the dignity, the values. When your values become a practical thing, I think business exposes that better than any other system. And having said that, in our conversation, I really would have been very curious, and it's just curiosity. I wouldn't even chase too much about it, but I would have been curious if someone in our panel would have been someone who was actually part of the looting and actually did some looting. Because for myself and for Brother Welcome as well, we are entrepreneurs. Naturally we are solution makers. Naturally we already think more about what the solution is than what the problem is, simply because that's how entrepreneurship flows. You can't have your mind, you only have the one mind, you only have the 24 hours. You can't spend all the time only thinking about the problem. We think more in solutions, and we think more in solutions that will come back to impact what's happening in the bank account. You see, when I do work with my entrepreneurs, I like to remind them that, look, I'm going to give you some homework. I like homework. I think it's one of my greatest tools. I love homework. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I won't chase after you for my homework. Life will give you the test and the exam. I don't have to give you the test and the exam. This is not like how we used to do it at school. Life will test you and your results, because life is not about marks. Your results will show up in your bank account. You can be very busy as an entrepreneur, very busy. But the bank account can say, yeah, you were not really busy, because we don't see the results in the bank account. So for me, part of the solution now needs to be, can I go back to my family and say to my younger brothers, this is what I'm building. I know it's only a car wash in your eyes, but come so that you are busy with that time and your mind is not idling. Your mind is not entertaining.
Okay, I think coach is frozen. Uh,
Yeah,
and are you there, brother? Welcome.
I also
Mhm,
wanted to
please.
add to what you were saying. You know, there's this saying that I have that's on my table. It says, "Don't be busy, be productive." You know, and then sometimes as entrepreneurs, you can say, "Oh, Carlos, I can't talk that I'm so busy." But the question at the end of the day you need to ask yourself, yeah, you can be busy, but are you are you being productive? And I think that is also what the coach was trying to allude to, is that how do we get entrepreneurs and young people productive? You know, because we can be a busy nation, but the question at the end of the day is that are we a productive nation? You give me a farm, am I able to produce, you know, the fruits? Am I able, you give me a house, am I able to make it a home? You know, those are the kinds of, that's the kind of entrepreneur energy and space that we need to start delving into. And when we look at the economic dynamics in our country, as you've asked, is that what really played a significant role in this unrest is the fact that, yes, our economy is up and down. One minute we think we're getting it, and the next minute it just, you know. And when COVID happened, that was the most confusing time for every other business. All of a sudden, we had to see ourselves going from face to face to online. You know, all of a sudden, we had to see ourselves moving into different spaces, and others have lost jobs because they could no longer do what they were doing because of COVID. So all of those things have had at hand in creating that kind of unrest on top of what our country is already going through. So when you ask the question, was it black people looting? Was it white people looting? Was it colors looting? Was it this looting? For me, I think that if we look at it about if we look at the dynamics of South Africa, we still have a lot of white people that have the monopoly of this country in their hands, you know, and it's not the unfairness of it, but it's the way in which these opportunities have been granted. And as South Africans, we're trying to get some of it back and saying, not to appropriate land or to appropriate business or to do all of those things, but to rather say to ourselves, how do we, even as the black child, also learn to get their own within a country that has a high and a very low income for the blacks, but a high income for whites. So how do we deal with that unfairness? How do we build that kind of where we can get to an equal platform of saying that if my white partner or my white businessman or my white businesswoman, we come together, we are on the same level. We no longer talk about, you know what, because sometimes we have these conversations with friends, and it's sometimes our white counterparts do not know how it impacts on us. You know what, guys, the looting South Africa is so terrible. I'm currently in the Maldives with my family, you know, but I feel for you people. I feel for my South African. You're not feeling. You're in the Maldives, bruh. You know, so for me, that's the kind of dynamic that we have, is that you can take your family to the Maldives, you can take your family to Mauritius, you can just go, but we have to sit and we have to deal with this shit. You know, sorry, we have to deal with this stuff. So for me, how do we bring back the equality in saying, as whites and as blacks, to say, okay, cool, as a white person, how do I get back to saying, how do I help my black brother rising? How, as a black man in a position of fortune, how do I help my white community? You know, so for me, it needs to be that kind of thing where it's no longer about your skin color speaks more, your skin color speaks more, but rather, you know, because people are even angry now. I mean, I think the coach will agree with me. We looked at the reshuffling of our cabinet, and there wasn't colors, there wasn't Indians, there wasn't white people, and it's sad that in 2021 we talk about diversity, we talk about BE, we talk about equity, we talk about you know, being equal, that our cabinet is completely black. It doesn't make it right, you know. And as a country, we need to see that that's just another thing that's going to erupt soon. So for me, it is those kinds of things that, yes, when we talk about what caused the unrest, all of these things, my brother, are those things. It's the unfairness, the equality, the inequality, the constant racial underlining war between whites and blacks. You know, the fact that we still have communities operating in the apartheid understanding of how things must be, and we still have other communities saying that we just want to be black and we just want to be white and we just want to be colored and we just want to be. So all of those things, are we truly really a rainbow nation as Nelson Mandela intended us to be? We are far from that. And that is the truth that we need to speak. We are far from being a rainbow nation. We are a rainbow nation in pretense. We are pretending to be a rainbow nation because it looks nice on Instagram. But in reality, I hate that white guy. I hate that Indian guy. That Indian guy hates me. I hate them, but we're not going to mention it. We're not going to show it, because if we do, then we are regarded as racist. But in actual fact, we're walking around with racism embedded in us. And yet we are afraid to talk about it because we are afraid of the kind of turmoil it's going to create. But rather, for me, it's like, if you are a racist, then speak so that you can get the help. That's the only way that you can get help, is by saying, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm a criminal. But if you try to hide it, you're going to continue being an undercover criminal, an undercover drug addict, an undercover racist because you are afraid to be judged by society. But yet you wait for an opportunity to act out on your prejudice. You wait for it. And unrest could be that. The next unrest could create that avenue or space for you to be exactly that. So yeah.
No, thank you. And Coach, welcome back after a small internet problem there. So you were cut out in the middle of your explanations. So maybe I would invite you to go back and carry on.
Yes, in fact, it is right in line with what I'm now rejoining the conversation with what Uput Welcome is saying. And from what he's saying, what I really take to heart more than any other thing is when you are quiet in society about who you really actually are, there's a deeper danger that we are doing there because you are not so quiet behind closed doors with your children. This racism is learned somewhere. So, in as much as in public I act all goody goody and all clean, no, I love everybody. When I'm with my children, I tell them my truth and that opposite truth, and because it has to come from somewhere. So, for me, those solutions again, just like Brother Welcome was saying, it needs to go back to the family and the household. It needs to go back to okay, with my children, what am I teaching them? How are they coming up now in terms of how they perceive their world? Because what will happen is you also send these children to school. Then they start to act out. Then they start to have different ideas. But my father, man, says we mustn't like these people. So why am I liking these people? And then it becomes something else. That's when then the explosion comes. When now the anger we are saying comes from somewhere else. There's all these inequalities that were not dealt with. There's all these wounds that were never covered by any bandage, at least. And when we do the bandage, we literally just do bandage mentality. We are not healing the wound. We are not cleaning it. We are not going deeper into it to make sure that it starts to heal. We just cover it up. Unfortunately, behind closed doors, we are not even covering up. We are very vocal to our families. We say what we really mean when we are watching the news and our children are listening, and we lash out and we say all the things that we are not brave to say in public. This is why things like social media bullying is so high now in our time than the bullying that we used to see in our time, because we are just braver behind the thumb on Twitter. We are just braver to say the things. Now, back to the solutions that I was proposing. It's right in line with all these concerns that Brother Welcome is still outlining. I think that business causes you to focus on what's more important about your values. I think business forces you, because value for me, when I say values, it's a simple statement of what you value, you prioritize. What you prioritize, you value. So even if we are not talking about being honest or being ethical, what are you prioritizing? If what you're prioritizing is not building, then your values are not building. It's really
Mm.
become that simple for me. And if we can then start to adopt some of those values, if I'm prioritizing taking care of my family, the right way to take care of them is to mind what goes into their educating, is to mind what we are watching, is to mind what we are eating, is to mind some of these little things. Because when we don't show self-love even from what we eat, then we are surprised when now the people explode like this. I think all these things are connected. I think in the family household, we can start to show a little bit more compassion, a little bit more grace with one another, which will allow us to talk. Because then, if we talk in the family household, if I start to hear my younger brother talking some of that racial nonsense, I can sit him down and say, hey, listen, I may not be that politically heavy and you may not hear me saying it in parliament, but what you are talking about now is not building us, is not moving us forward. Can we start to build? That's what I mean when I talk about business. I talk about the mindset for solutions, not a type of business, but the mindset for solutions over the problem.
And brother, welcome. A couple
Yeah.
of
So
questions before. You were also pointing out that uh, what youth want, and that was really a very interesting idea, that what youth talk and what they express as their desires and their needs. And I would also like to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because as someone who's working directly with youth, I think it's we not very often stop to ask them, what do you want and your generation wants. So what kind of country and what kind of future they would like to see, and what changes we need to do to help them into seeing that country that they envision becomes a reality.
You know, the saddest thing, my brothers, and I speak to both of you, and this is really from my heart. And when you listen to young people, and you ask that question that you just asked now, Carlos, is like, what is it that you want in this country? And the only thing that these kids say to me is this: we just want people to listen to us. Nobody's listening to us. Everybody's talking. Everybody's talking. I mean, you go on LinkedIn, you go on Facebook, you go on various platforms. It's just adults talking. There's no platform for these young people to express themselves, to say, this is how I feel. This is where I'm at. Through this time of COVID, we've had so many young people committing suicide. We've had such a lot of young people decide, I'd rather just take my life because I'm insignificant. I don't mean anything. If I go to mom and dad is sitting in front of the TV, watching the news, shouting various remarks and all of these things. They're not listening to me. And the only thing that our young people want, they just want to be listened to. They also have ideas. They also want to bring something to the table to build South Africa. But they're not being asked. They are being told what to bring. They're being told what to say. In South Africa, we have an education system that is it's so sad. Because, I mean, I was raised on that education system. It's like, it's not teaching our young people to think. It's teaching them to remember. Go home, read this book, study, come back, write the test. What do you remember? It's like, really, who wants to? You're not going anywhere with remembering things. In remembering, there's no future. It's like you're teaching me something which I need to remember. I mean, teach me to think. Teach me to feel. Teach me to apply. Teach me to be practical. Teach me to live. Teach me to feed myself. But these are things that we are not doing. We are teaching our kids to just remember. And kids saying they're tired of being taught to remember. They want to be taught to think. They want to be given opportunities because they can bring something to the table. And if we were to ask them that question, I think even for Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, I think that he will notice that young people, the only thing that they want is just to be listened to. They want to be heard. We have all been men. Let's be honest with each other. We've all been in relationships. We are currently in relationships. Our women sometimes get angry at us because we are not listening to them. And they do the most craziest stuff because they want us to hear them. So when the country goes the way it goes, when South Africa responds and acts the way it's responding, do we not just sit back and say, but you know what? If we just listen to these people, then maybe we might have a different direction. But everybody's talking simultaneously and nobody's prepared to listen because we have the answers. We've got the degrees, we've got the diplomas, we've got the doctorates, we've got all of these things, and it's nice. But the one thing that education was never meant to take away from us is the fact that we need to listen. The fact that we need to be fathers to our daughters, that we need to be fathers to our sons, the fact that we need to make them part of the solution instead of always saying, I have a plan, I have a solution. As a man, I need to provide. Therefore, let me go and provide. Instead of sitting down saying, okay, guys, we've got this challenge right now in the house. Daddy's not working. What do you think Daddy needs to do? And listening to your daughter say, Daddy, I think you need to do this. Daddy, I need to think you would be surprised with the awesomeness. My daughter, Sky, she's 10 years old. And whenever she needs something from me, she always says, Dad, I need the following, but please tell me, did you get paid this month? If not, then we can negotiate. That's how open she is, because she understands Daddy's situation. And that is the kind of family that we need to have. It's like where the daughter can say, but Dad, I understand that you didn't buy me ice cream this month because you didn't get paid as much as you should have. So for me, I feel like if we just getting back to the point and just coming back to the point, because I didn't want to forget it, is like for many of my white friends, the thing that hurts the most is when I'm sitting in their presence and the question is asked, are you a racist? And their response is, I'm not a racist because I've got black friends. Do you understand the impact of saying you're not racist and you've got black friends? For me, it's like, just have friends. Why must you have black friends? The fact that you answer it like that already makes you a racist. You know, so for me is that we've got these deep-seated dynamics that we need to work on. And as a people, we need to get to that table. So I think, Carlos, this is one of these platforms that can help us get there. I think, Coach, these are one of the conversations that can help us get there, to engage more with young people. And my last point on this is that it's 6 o'clock. These young people are supposed to go home. I'm telling you, they are still in the next room. They don't want to go home. And I always ask them, why don't you want to go home? We all understand why not. We all know why not. It's because, number one, they don't feel heard. They don't feel safe. They don't feel as if they're going back somewhere because there's other issues going on there. So we, as South Africans, we need to look at how do we make our families safe again? How do we allow our young people to feel like I can talk to dad, I can talk to mom, I can respect the president? Because as a country, we even make fun of our president. We put him up there, make him up nicely, we put red lips on him. We're making him a puppet. That's the kind of country that we are in right now. We don't even respect authority because we don't know what to respect. So I think we need to go back to the model of values.
And once again, family. And that was my daughter, by the way, you stopped by to visit you guys. So Coach,
Beautiful.
as someone who works with entrepreneurs, I think it's also important to ask you the same thing about the audience. You know better. What do entrepreneurs want for the future of South Africa?
That's a beautiful question, Carlos, and it's actually an easy question to answer, but not so easy to follow through on. We all want access to markets. Now, that's just a generic statement that we learn about in some textbook. We want relationships. The entrepreneur has a serious challenge because he's now realizing, the South African entrepreneur, from some of the studies that we've done, he's realizing that the people that are able to clinch certain deals and certain important business connections have a long-standing relationship. The rapport was built way before, be it at school. So if I didn't go to school with certain people who look a certain way, it means I may not have access to certain opportunities. So it's networks, it's opening up. And we what we've started to do in our languaging as the people who are doing the coaching part, to help those entrepreneurs and integrate them into the actual economic system. Because please keep this in mind, some of the people we are calling entrepreneurs are not even participating in the economy. Not really, if we're really telling the truth. Some of the things that we've started to do in helping them to make that transition is to stop with languaging that has to do, say, maybe with employment, but it has more to do with empowerment. And what I mean by that is we've allowed the black child to also now understand that, yeah, but it's also up to you. You need to also now look at, there's Google, there's technology. Now you must also say, well, I think possible solutions are going this way. And this then directly links to what Brother Welcome was saying, that yeah, it seems like somebody is saying, yeah, I've been saying something to you, but you haven't been listening. And I'm saying, yeah, but I need to hear from you as well. I don't want to just be your teacher. I'm the one who's saying just because I'm older. So it seems like there's just a bit of communication breakdown where the entrepreneur is saying, yeah, but no one is listening to me. And we are saying to the entrepreneur, yeah, but also how you are speaking, you're not coming off professional. You are shouting, you are bending down things. Calm down, relax yourself. You can get access. It's just a relationship. It starts with hello. It starts with interacting. It starts with, there's a simple principle that I like to teach entrepreneurs, and I'll try to summarize it here. I say to them, I don't know how much it will translate to this platform, but I say to them, when I walk into a building and I find the receptionist there and I'm looking to do some business, I'm here to sell my services. And I say in my native language, Sawubona, to the lady or gentleman who is at that reception. When they respond and they don't respond in Zulu and they say, Ache, in Setswana, if I do not switch, either speak in English and explain to them that I don't know their language, that's why I'm speaking in English. If I continue with my Zulu and I say Ninjani, I'm losing business. That is not the path of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur understands his environment. He works with his environment. He listens to every language because every language is valid. And by the way, now in the context that I'm talking about, I'm not even talking about Zulu, I'm not talking about Portuguese, I'm not talking about Tswana. I'm now talking about maths is a language, soccer is a language, movies are a language, everything is a language. What languages are you permitting into? So the entrepreneur, to answer your question directly, what do they want? Market linkages, relationships, network me, connect me with someone. My question then to the entrepreneur is, yeah, but what language are you speaking? Because now it's just a matter of aligning the language. We are all looking at the same problems. We just don't really agree on what the solutions are. And that for me is more of a political mindset. No, I have my way of dealing with things. No, but I also have my way. Business kind of gives us a base to say, look, if you want to be heard, if you want to, here's how we can do it in a systematic way, because business is just a system. It's a set of systems of a thing that can govern itself and have its own life. Directly answering your question, looking for market linkages. That's what the entrepreneur is looking for.
We have a question here. I would like, it's in Portuguese. I'll put it on the screen, but I'll give you a translation. Don't worry. So they were saying. So Irene is saying that the conversation is very interesting, and she liked that part where you mentioned the black friend. I have a black friend, uh, and she was asking your opinion about the South African military support to Mozambique in the war in Cabo Delgado. I don't know if you knew about the military support of your country to my country, and if you have an informed idea or any feedback on any vision on about that issue. So maybe welcome first, and then Coach. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me the when remember we had the unrest in our country, and then they also sent the South African National Defence Force into the country to go and help out with the looting and trying to restore the peace. And then we also realized that there was a little bit of turmoil brewing in Mozambique, and then they also sent troops to that side, and the government said that they were sending the troops as a way of supporting the Mozambican government. So there was a lot of in South Africa, as we were sitting in conversations, and people were saying that, what is our government supporting the government of Mozambique, or is our government supporting the people? Sometimes that's always like when you use government, like when you use the military, and you send it to another country, the question that you must always ask yourself is that, are you supporting the people or are you supporting the government, and who is at fault? Because if government is at fault and you're sending your troops there to help government, then it means that you're also enforcing the wrongdoing of that government, which puts South Africa in a very difficult position. Because then it's not about, and for me the problem that I have with my country is that they forget that they were also liberated. And they think as liberators, and that is why I like the dynamic of saying that liberators cannot be governors. They can't govern. They can liberate and they move on to liberate another thing. They are just liberators. That's a revolutionary is a revolutionary, and he will be that, and he will, that's it. But so for me, sometimes it's like you can't just go into a country and want to say, I want to liberate. But what are you liberating the people from? Are you liberating them from something which is turning them into, So for me, the situation in Mozambique is really, it's a heartbreaking dynamic, as we said, and most of the young people are being impacted and sucked into that kind of dynamic, that they just want to live their lives and do and bring about an economic change within their country, but yet they are not allowed that freedom to do it, because some people at the age of 66 still want to hold on to power. Some people at the age of 70 still want to hold on to power and not give to younger people to rule and to continue growing. So for me, it is a really sad situation. Hence, I'm saying that Africa has its unique challenges, and we can never look at a European solution for African problems. It's impossible. African problems needs to be African solutions. But the minute we constantly throw textbooks at it, we are never going to reach a part where we're going to be physically and emotionally and as African people be free. For instance, in Africa, many, many years ago, when you have stolen from your neighbor, the entire village would surround the thief, put you in the middle, and tell you of what an awesome person you were. They will tell you that when you grew up as a young boy, you used to do this for this one, you used to do that, you were such a brilliant, and that in its own will change your narrative for stealing. There wasn't that situation of let's punish this person and burn this person and do this and do that. It was always about how do we bring the positive back into the person that has stolen. And as Africa, we've always been able to do that. But now as Africa, we feel that we need to constantly look at, send a gun, send in army, send in this, intimidate black people. Do you know how many black children were intimidated in Alex, in Soweto? Do you know what it does for a young child growing up in an African continent to see a guy walking around brandishing an R1? Do you understand the psychological impact that has on that child at that specific moment? I even fight with mall security and saying that, guys, if you're coming to take money out of the bank, do it within a certain time. Because there's a lot of kids walking up and down here. Do you know the impact that gun has on that child's mind? The fear that you instill in a child psychologically. So for me, it's like those are the techniques that the Europeans used on us. They come there with their machines and show us that, you're coming here with your spears, an African person. Look at what we've got. We've got this gun. We've got the, it was that kind of instilling fear. So we are using the same system of instilling fear in an African child, knowing very well the impact it had on our forefathers. So for me, I feel like it's really a situation that needs to be talked about maybe more, and saying that brandishing a firearm in front of a child is not supposed to happen. But right now, it's like it's just happening, and black people everywhere are doing it because it's nice. It's not. It's a real psychological. It impairs the child to think, because it's just really painful. Because when you start talking to kids about how they feel about that, it's like really saying, "I'm scared. I can't sleep," because of what I'm seeing. So that's the opinion with regards to the. Are you sending the army to Mozambique to intimidate Africans, or are you sending them there to support? And if you're sending an army down to another country, send them without firearms. Just send them there to talk and stand and support the people. That's what I would say if I was president.
Thank you, brother. Welcome.
And welcome for president.
Coach, on your side.
Thank you so much for that opinion, But Welcome, because to be very honest with you, Carlos, even as you asked your question, I think you just took one look at me and you thought, this one, I might as well put it out there. Do you even know about this? I appreciate that, and I want to speak to the information circulation. I want to speak to, I think it was Steve Harvey who wrote something about a circle of influence and a circle of concern. There are things that are within my immediate power of influence that I can make changes on, and then there are things that are political that I end up having, my power has been stolen and taken from me, and I no longer have a say. My opinion has been belittled so much and has been played around with so much. You will find that someone who gets elected into power also gets there having issued and given so many promises and so many favors to people who have put him in that position. And naturally, when he has to pay back to those people, and now my vote has to play a role in background conversations. And because of those things, there's a certain ignorance that I do have to the news. There's a certain, I like to not watch the news a lot. It feels to me like it's bad news. It feels to me like there's a narrative driven. And as a result, I am not even aware. Now, in my awareness, when you put it to me now, the first thing that jumps at me is, who is circulating the right information for us? Because then it means that whole thing that steals my opinion, that whole thing that makes me feel like, yeah, your vote, yeah, it's only important when we are going to the polls. But after that, not really, we'll still do as we wish. We'll still run favors for our friends using, cabinet funds. We'll still basically just, it will be business as usual. That thing, it means, has carried forward so much, which is something we've always known, that it translates deep into media, deep into circulated information. somebody out there decides not to put certain information out or to put whatever other information out. And as a result, there will never be a point where I feel like I've been given sufficient information for me to understand why a South African army is being posted at a certain place. It will always be some headline quick. We've become a Twitter generation. We are taking them there because of the 1940, and it's over. And no one is really coming back to that point that But Welcome was saying, that no one is really listening anymore. And as a result, no one is really feeding me proper information. I don't really know what we are doing there. I don't know how it started. I don't know what. No one is really feeding us information. Just like now in this platform, you've had to come and call us, Put Carlos, and have us have this conversation, because there's really no way for you to know what is happening with the looting in South Africa if we're really talking the honest to God truth. Social media is not really feeding us. People, when they get to those platforms, also only spread their fears, only spread the drama part of it, the story, because the story just sells more and is catchier. But once the dust settles and we say, how much was broken and how much fixing do we need to now put in? Now we can ask the question, but what are we even doing in Mozambique? Who is sent out there? Who was sent? Who did the sending? We're not even in a position to do that, because we've just been bombarded with so much in terms of the leadership that we see immediately to service delivery in my own community here. I'm now struggling to even look at why were we sending the military, because service delivery right here, I'm having problems right here in my doorstep. That's my part about it. And to be totally blunt and honest with you, I didn't even know.
No, and that's a great answer and a powerful one. And not knowing is sometimes the powerful way to really express and go to the bottom of these issues. We have also Bruna with us, and Bruna is saying great conversation. So thank you, Bruna, for being with us. So as we are going into the end of the conversation, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to go to Brother Welcome and ask you if you are optimistic, even knowing everything you know and living what you are living and listening to youth. Are you an optimistic person about the future of South Africa, the future of youth in South Africa? Do you see this with? Do you find reasons to be optimistic and happy and believe in what's coming, or is it difficult?
Yeah, for those of you that don't know my story, I grew up. I mean, at the age of 12, I joined the gangs, and at the age of 17, I was sentenced to 23 years in prison. I did 14 years in Polsmo prison. So as a young person, if I knew what I knew now, and I never spoke English like this. I mean, I'm colored, I praat Afrikaans, ek salam zis, ek salam bom. I speak prison language. That's the kind of language I grew up speaking. And only to realize that once I got more involved in education, I looked at the fact that Nelson Mandela used to say that education is a weapon. I kind of like changed that. I said to him, you must be strong. I don't believe that education is a weapon. I believe that education is a tool that empowers. And I'm using it in that sense. And it empowered me to grow out of gangsterism. It empowered me to grow out of this cocoon of believing that as a colored, I need to be violent and constantly be aggressive and constantly, because that's within my nature. I grew out of that nature, realizing that I can actually have a conversation with my brother. I can have a conversation with my fellow brother and sister and kind of like get to that point where we can negotiate. How do we navigate living together in this space? And I feel when you ask me whether I'm optimistic, I'm not a dope dealer anymore. I'm a hope dealer. I deal in hope. I believe that in every situation, the value of hope surfaces. That if we love each other, if we are kind to each other, I left the gangs because someone was kind to me. And I now need to be kind to the next person. I now need to show love to the next person. And if we continue teaching our young people about hope, about kindness, about inspiring hope within them, there is always hope for a country such as South Africa. And once we can allow hope to live, we can inspire Mozambique, we can inspire Ghana, we can inspire Nigeria, we can inspire all our other African countries to feel that hope. So I'm very optimistic, and I do believe that we're going through a tough change. We're going through a tough time. There's a lot happening in our country all at once. We are a dramatic nation. We love drama. You know, and as the coach says, we like a Twitter generation. 1 minute it's there, 1 minute it's there, it's stuff. If we can just get ourselves grounded enough and start saying, let us resolve this issue and move to the next. Let us resolve that issue and move to the next. I believe that if we teach our young people, and that's what we are doing right now, that's why I'm saying that these kind of platforms that we are currently creating, where we can say, if 10 or 20 young people start thinking like Welcome is thinking, start thinking like Carlos is thinking, start thinking like the coach is thinking, then there's hope for our countries. We don't need everybody to think the way that we are thinking, just a few people, because those people, they are the ones that are going to restore the balance. And a beautiful thing I used to learn, and this is what I want to leave you with, is if good people stand on the sidelines and do nothing, they are to blame for what is happening. You cannot come to me and say that it's not my problem that this is happening in Mozambique. It's not my problem. This is happening in South Africa. The fact that you are saying it's not your problem, you are the problem. Anything that happens to a brother or a sister that lives, that breathes, that looks like you, that speaks like you, the minute you do not do anything, you are part of the problem. And that is what I want to encourage our African brothers and sisters, that no matter what, no matter if you cannot, if you don't have to be able to fund them, you don't have to be able to send money to them, but just your intention, send that intention of saying, how can we support? How can we start a dialogue? How can we talk? How can we ask? Like you did today, Carlos, you started this dialogue. That is your value. And if we can start bringing those things to the table, that is how we can help each other grow. We rise by lifting others. And that's the only way that we can survive as a nation. And that is what I want to. So yes, I am optimistic. I am very much positive. As long as hope is alive, we are going to make it. Like in the saying, you know,
Nice.
Hope doesn't
Nice.
kill. As long as hope
Thank
is
you, my
there,
friend.
there's always an opportunity.
Before I give it to the coach to respond on that question, we have a comment from Viviane. Viviane is one of our loyal viewers. So Viviane is thanking for the conversation, very interesting. And this is for you, brother. Welcome. What should do young people do to express themselves and to be listened? What can they do to make their voices heard?
Yeah, and I think the best answer to that is our young people to become more artistic. You know, there's so many ways to speak. You don't always have to speak with your mouth. You know, your art can be your voice. Your painting can be your voice. Your acting, your ability to show your feeling, to show your pain in various ways. I mean, we run the APC Academy for young people at Bright Spark Foundation. And what we teach these young people is that if your mom is not listening to you, most of our kids are in abusive households. And we say to these kids that sometimes they can't talk about the abuse that goes on. And we say, okay, cool, role play what's going on at home. And the beautiful pieces these kids bring together, like the acting, how they come out and show you the pain, show you the hurt. As young people need to be more expressive artistically, creatively. If people take away your voice, if people take away your mouth, use your movement, your body. Never resort to violence. That doesn't get people to listen to you. Bring out a beautiful message through your acting, through your painting, through your art. And I promise you, the minute you start putting it out there in color, in spectacle, in spectacular, amazing colors, people start looking and say, but what is this person trying to say? That is when you then say, this is what I'm trying to say. Then you speak. So for young people out there, if you really want to express yourself, yes, some people say that in Africa, we need to take the firearm and go and shoot them, go and kill. Spilling blood is no longer the answer. Being able to stand in front of those soldiers and, you know, showing them your painting, showing them your art, showing them your your movements, your rhythm, your song. And as Africans, we can dance beautifully, we can sing beautifully. That is what gets people listening. So that's my motivation for them.
Thank you. And thank you, Vivian, once again. So, Coach, are you an optimistical person about the future of our continent, of your country?
It's a very beautiful question, Carlos, and for me, it even links to the comment that Vivian just sent through. I want to add a little bit onto what But Welcome was saying, but to just immediately answer your question very directly, my answer is yes. My answer is, as an entrepreneur, I kind of have to. I rely on it. It's saved me from so many things. It's a survival mechanism. When I don't see a glowing future, how can I push when it comes to entrepreneurship when there's so much rejection, so much other negative stuff that happens there, With sales, it's never that easy. So I have to be optimistic. I live off optimism. But I wanted to touch a little bit on what Vivian was raising, because I find it such a beautiful question. And for me, the beauty in that question was more because the question then says, how can the young people express themselves? It's that themselves part that I got a little bit stuck on. And for me, one of the advice that I would like to give to young people is a little bravery goes a very long way. Because yes, we can get into art like Good Welcome is advising us, but sometimes we are just afraid to then share it. So my thing is, put it out there. Put yourself out there. I think it's not easy. Yes, I think it's a real challenge. Yes. I think now, as a person who's over 40 years old, I can say I'm very optimistic about where we are going. But when we are still young, when you are young, you are just about to finish school. Let's say maybe you are 16. You just have maybe a year or two to go, and there's all this that is happening around you, all this looting, all this. You're just thinking, will I even have a job? Will I even have employment? Is there a future? And that can be very defeating. And we don't really have some type of a trauma counseling. We brush off some of these things. We don't really, man, we're just growing up. But there must be some moment where we can say, my ability to dream and my ability to use my imagination at some point in time was hindered by something and by someone. At some point in time, someone showed me limitation. I need to heal out of this. I need to continue to dream. When we are children, we dream very big. We are not limited. When we are still children, well, there's no limitation. Somebody comes and they tell us that is impossible. That cannot happen. That you can. Somebody at some point in time introduced this limitation to me. But now, as an older man, I have the benefit of hindsight. Now I can say, even with all the businesses that I've failed in, I ran my first business in '98. I've been in the space for a long time. All the failures I've added, I'm such a strong coach today because of the failures. If I hadn't failed, who knows what I would be saying to the entrepreneur today. So with hindsight, I'm able to say, yeah, I'm definitely optimistic. I definitely feel that we will get a chance to express ourselves, even as young people. We just need that bravery. We just need that. And I speak about bravery because also there are too many voices online. There are too many voices that come with the internet. Now there are too many teachers. I don't really know who to listen to. I don't really know who my friends are. And it will be up to you to have that bravery. That's why Put Welcome kept saying to us, it must go back to the household. It must go back to what we are saying to our kids inside the household. If in the household I'm not minding what my kids are exposed to online, then I'm not helping them to gain the right kind of bravery. I'm not helping them to be brave about the right things. If I just leave them with excess, then they just are online and all that they're doing is bullying somebody else, because it's nice to be on Twitter to just comment on someone. Hey, did you see him? Did you see what they did to him? As long as they are not pointing that finger at me, it's nice for me. I'm optimistic because at some level or another, it will hit home. Even for the person that's looting and burning down a building, it will hit home. He will come back to realize, actually, and just to wrap up from what I really loved what Welcome was saying, even as he started to speak about being optimistic, even as he started to share a little bit about his history. There's something that I was immediately reminded of. I realized There's no real value in light until you introduce darkness. Equally, there's no real value in darkness until there's light. I also take to heart that in a space where it's just complete darkness, a light of a candle, just a flicker of a candle, does so much. It goes so far. I really like what Boot Welcome was saying when he's saying sometimes it just takes the two or three, the Carlos and the Welcome and the coach that decide to sit down and have this conversation. It sometimes doesn't take everybody to carry the cross. Sometimes it's just a few individuals who say, I'm willing to look in the mirror and I'm willing to assess myself. Just like Put Welcome was saying, I'm willing to not say this is somebody else. I'm willing to see myself in this thing and see what I can correct in me, about the people immediate to me, about what I can control around me. If I start from there, then yes, I'm absolutely optimistic. We will get somewhere.
Thank you very much. So, from my side, um, after this conversation with both of you, I think I can also allow myself to be optimistic about
Nice.
the outcome and the future of your country, of my country, and of our continent. And I think what we can do, is ask questions, is express emotions, express our fears, share our stories, and live our journeys. And this is what we are doing. We came here with no certainties, none of us, just questions, just important questions. But coming from different angles, I think we have shared and we have moved all together into a really beautiful space of knowledge and of hope. And I think that's a great way to end this moment, this beautiful conversation and discussion we had, because uh, I feel more safe now. I feel safer. I feel I have reasons to believe because I've met people who are doing work to make me believe. I, I feel people, as an entrepreneur, I see a coach who is working with other people like me in South Africa to give them hope and guidance and a belief in the future. And as a parent, as you saw my daughter coming in, I have brother Welcome who is taking care of their future, who, who is working every day to inspire people like my daughter to believe in a better future and believe that she is empowered to be who she wants and deserves to be. And that's everything we need, is the space to believe and to dream and to try to be ourselves and our best version. So I really want to thank you, not just for being available and for being open and very interesting man, but also for the amazing work you guys are doing every day. I think you are truly African heroes, and it's an honor for us at Freestyle Talks to have you here as a part of our journey.
Thank you.
Blessings, Putwan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, uh, I would like to just leave you space for any final remarks if you'd like. So, brother, welcome first, and then coach. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking of giving a nice quote. But I'm thinking, for me personally, what I feel I want to say is that do not allow your past to hold you captive. I've decided that I'm never going to allow my past to hold me captive. What has happened in the past has happened. It has been a great learning for me, and it has allowed me to become the man that I am today. And as a father myself, I remember when I was sitting in prison and I had to decide whether I still wanted to be a gangster. There were men sitting in front of me, and they were talking about how they raped, how they killed, how they did brutal things, and they were laughing about it. At that moment, I had said to myself, if I were to be a father one day, what kind of father do I want to be? It is at that moment that each man out there, and I'm speaking to fathers and I'm speaking to men out there, at that moment you must realize that the kind of man you become is the kind of husband that your daughter is going to choose. That's the kind of man she's going to bring home. It's the kind of man that represents her father. So men, step up. Step up and be counted and become responsible men and become men of integrity, despite the challenges. You don't have to be rich to be a father. You don't have to be a billionaire to be the best father. Just be a present and available father. Be there. Listen. Hear. Feel. That's all you need to do. You will be the best father. So that's my message to fathers out there. Step up, be available, be present. And yeah, we'll see.
Thank you. Coach.
Beautiful words, my brother. Beautiful words, brother. Welcome. Brother Carlos, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for having us on. I don't even have any last words. It's been such a beautiful conversation. I have nothing to add, except I really like the note where Brother Welcome is ending at step up. Take some action, be there, be present. I mean, he's said it all. I'm really just concurring with him. I second exactly what he's saying. Thanks again for this opportunity. What a lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Thank you both. And also, please stay safe and keep doing what you are doing. And if you ever need to come back here to this space and share any other updates, talk about a different topic, maybe that idea of having a conversation with African youth, I think it's something that we could explore in the future. Maybe teenagers from different African countries, and we could organize a roundtable here on Freestyle Talkz with young people from Mozambique, South Africa, Ghana, Egypt, and have maybe 5 or 6 countries involved and have a discussion about dreams of African youth. I think it could be maybe a very interesting conversation to organize. So
Beautiful.
let's keep in touch. Let's keep in touch and let's explore these ideas and see where it goes. So stay safe. And you are always a part of the Talks, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So thank you, everybody. And this was our conversation about social unrest in South Africa. Once again, I would like to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so. And we'll be back next week, as always, on a Friday. We will be talking next week with a Portuguese DJ called Bright. He's a performer, he's a DJ, and what I find is this is a great time to have a DJ with us, because in Europe now it's summertime, and this differently from last year. This is a summer where things are starting to reopen and parties and events are starting to take place again, under a different set of rules, under different scrutiny. So we will have a topic about the show must go on, but I think it's very important to have an opinion from an artist and someone who has been left behind and not having the space to do his work for a long time in a normal circumstance, but also to understand the need of having a space for art, a space for music, a space for people to be together, to dance, to jump, to laugh, and to just live, and socialize. But also understanding the complexity and the challenges of doing this under this new crazy world we are living in. So thank you very much, and I hope you share this powerful conversation about the social unrest in South Africa and complex moments Africa as a continent also, I think, is living. And we talk about entrepreneurship, we spoke about youth. So I think we leave you here very important ideas to reflect and to act on. So from my side, that's all for this week. So I'll see you next week. And I really appreciate you for once again being with us here at Freestyle Talkz. And I hope to see you soon, and subscribe. Thank you.